Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about how they became successful today. And I have with me my amazing friend Luke, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Yo, what's up? I hope you guys are tuning in. I'm really excited for this one. I would recommend you guys have a pen and paper or take some notes out as you're going through this because I'm going to try and drop as many golden nuggets as I can. But to give you guys a little intro, started my business when I was sleeping in my car, and over the last 5 years, we've put in around 2,000 one-on-one coaching hours. So started as a mindset and fitness coach, and now I'm the anti-self-sabotage coach. So we help scaling entrepreneurs stop getting in their own way and be their best selves.
Well, that's amazing. So, how did you go from sleeping in your car to where you are now?
Okay, so I went to university like a lot of people and didn't really have a purpose, didn't really understand where I was going. And at the time, I got an opportunity to work in some music events, marketing and sales. I thought, hey, let's jump into that. Except for it was an internship and I couldn't really afford rent, so I moved cities from one place to another, slept in my car, slept on my friend's floor, and yeah, I just did what I needed to do at the time to make things work. So I would do the music events, marketing and sales in the day, and then at night I would survey flying bats because I have a degree that I don't use anymore in wildlife conservation. And then I basically lost my events job, and then the seasonal bat surveying work stopped at the same time. And I had this panic attack, night terror, all in the same space of about 12 hours. And I was in this weird sort of haze, and I don't know if any of you have had anxiety attacks or just had this heavy state of overwhelm. And you're in this haze where nothing is really coming through your brain, but at the same time, everything is coming through your brain. And I just got this one big download. It was like, why would you change somebody's life when you can change their entire life with coaching? Since I'd come through a ton of mid to high level sports things when I was growing up, and I thought, yeah, let's do some coaching. Yeah, I went from sleeping in my car, calling my parents and being like, "Oh, can I please come to your house? Can I work out of my room?" So I would work in my office bedroom, and then things just kept progressing from there. Made some scary leaps, and yeah, I kept growing.
It's amazing. That's incredible. So, you coach entrepreneurs on how to stop self sabotage. Like,
Yes.
what does that look like exactly?
Yeah, so what everybody needs to know about self-sabotage is it doesn't necessarily mean that you have porn addiction or you have a sex thing going on or you have an alcohol problem. That could look like the deeper depths, but if you look at that as more of a symptom of the problem, the root cause of the problem being your internal self. And so we have a framework called the FIRE framework. FIRE stands for F. F stands for false identity. False identity is a little bit like imposter syndrome, but it's also in alignment with you're not doing the things that you should be, are meant to be doing, are more expansive because you're attached to who you were before, because that feels safer for your brain. There's a psychological principle called self discrepancy theory, which is the difference between who you think you are, who you think you should be, who you expect yourself to be, and where you currently are. And when your brain doesn't have a bridgeable gap, as in a clear roadmap to how do I actually make this transition, then you spiral into the survival emotions. Your survival emotions being triggered by your limbic system, which is part of your amygdala. You look at that as your fear, your anxiety. Self-doubt is a form of anxiety and anger and shame and guilt. And the challenging thing is for a lot of entrepreneurs is you've got to use what you've got at the right time. And so at times, anger may have driven you. You may be somebody who loves listening to Alex Hormozy. But if you listen to Alex Hormozy's podcast with Tony Robbins the other day, they went down a rabbit hole where it was like, Alex has been building this from fear and anger and shame and guilt. And so it reaches a stop point where this is no longer aligning you with your best self anymore. And so if you want to have healthier relationships, if you want to have other parts of your life expand, if you want to stop creating more chaos, because so many business owners have created chaos for themselves because they've only built from chaos. They've only built from survival emotions. And so false identity is very important that we understand where is one of the root causes. I stands for invisible rules. Look at this as like your limiting beliefs, your limiting thoughts, frameworks, beliefs that are not yours that have been passed on from your childhood, whatever that is. For example, when I grew up, I didn't believe I was smart. And that's because in school I was put into the special classes because I couldn't learn, too much hyperactive energy going on. And also whenever I was misbehaving at home, my dad would call me a stupid idiot. And so I was so used to you're a stupid idiot, stupid idiot, stupid idiot. And, that's like my dad's reflection, all forgiven, it is what it is. But at the same time, that belief made me step into a place where, oh, I don't enjoy learning, I don't enjoy expanding myself. And so as an entrepreneur, if you have these limiting beliefs, these are going to impact your day-to-day decisions, whether you choose to go and scroll or whether you choose to keep expanding yourself, keep investing in yourself, keep tuning into podcasts or whatever that is going to be. R, you're gonna hear my West Country accent with that, sounding like a pirate as I sound R. R is resistance to expansion, and so this might look like fear of success. Oh, if I get more business in, then I'm gonna have to hire more team members, or I'm gonna have to spend more on ads, or I'm gonna have to do more marketing, or I'm gonna have to stop doing all the work myself and start learning to trust other people more. And so resistance to expansion can kind of look like an upper limit problem. If you imagine you're in a room right now and the room is set to 70 degrees and you want to be at 72. And so you make this big elaborate decision. No, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to start doing this thing. I'm going to start getting up at 6 a.m. I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to invest in this coach. I'm going to invest in this course. People make these big radical decisions, but what they don't realize is there's a self-sabotaging nervous system and subconscious mind underneath it that then as you start doing 72 degree behaviors, you start doing 68 degree behaviors. So you do things that swing you towards your future self, but you also do things that are reflectant of what you used to do in the past. And so people find that they're always in this roller coaster, that even when they hit their best months, suddenly they start procrastinating or they start hanging out with more people or start going out more and they stop being the best version of themselves. And so momentum never gets a real opportunity to get going because they self-sabotage. And then the last one is excessive control. So look at this as you're micromanaging, you're having to look at all the little intricate details, having to force outcomes. And that can work to some degree because you need to have a level of conviction in what you're doing. You need to say, hey, this is the way that it's going to go. This is the way that I've envisioned it. And this is the way that it needs to happen. You need that as an entrepreneur. But it can completely close you off to opening up to new opportunities, new windows, new perspectives that could have astronomically grown you. And so that's where we look at when we start with somebody, where are you self-sabotaging the most? And then we map that against your next 90 days. So we work in quarters generally. We'll understand what are your 3 biggest goals for the next few months. A lot of entrepreneurs have too many goals, then they don't have enough focus, and then energy is everywhere and they can't keep up with everything. So we keep it nice and short, 3 goals, and then what are all the things that we need to do to achieve that? And then we map the FIRE framework against all of the tasks that are going to happen. And then that way we can bypass your self-sabotage before you even get there. So that's how we do it. That's how we play the game. That's how we start.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you start learning about the psychology behind all of this?
So a vulnerable story for you guys. So growing up, I had a pretty dysfunctional family. Like, I love my family. They really did support me in a lot of areas, but my parents' way of coping was drinking a lot of wine at the dinner table, sometimes 2 bottles of wine a night. And so I learned growing up that in order to deal with my emotions, I had to externalize that. And mine wasn't just alcohol, it would be drugs, it would be gambling. At university, it was kind of effectively the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it took me so long to get out of it. And pornography was in there at some points as well. And it took me so long to get celibate because I would go to AA or I would go to the effectively like Porn Addicts Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would go to these things and I was like, these things aren't working for me. And I would go into the room and I would be like, I'm a big believer that you are the 5 people you hang around with. And some of these people, bless their hearts, were in some really, I thought I was in challenging positions. These people were in some really challenging positions. And I thought, as much as I'm here for collective growth together, I don't want to be in these rooms. And so Then I would dive into talk therapy, and talk therapy helped me a little bit, but I still felt like I was stuck and I was still in my pattern. And then I would dive in, I started having people reach out to me online saying, hey, we can do this quantum healing stuff and do this big sort of identity jump. I thought, okay, well, we'll dive into this, and we'll dive into that, we'll dive into that, dive into that. Kind of like an addict will do anything to try and get their fix. You ever meet like crack addicts on the street? They'll always find a way to make their money, bless their hearts. Same with entrepreneurs. We'll always find a solution to our problems. We'll get there initially, we'll get there. But the same principle. And then what I really understood was I was doing so much mindset work and so much subconscious work, and my brain was there, but my body wasn't. And so I got the opportunity to do something called neo-emotional release, which is a blend of trauma work, somatic work, hypnosis work. It's look at it as a combination of elements that allow me to move forwards, and that through diving in that, I realized that no wonder this makes sense. No wonder I'm so dysregulated, because if you think of your brain and your body are connected, they're not separate. And so for you guys listening, we can all be adults here. I'll give you an example. Let's say you get involved with somebody that you find somewhat attractive. Maybe you're getting into a sexual sort of scenario. Your brain's going to say, okay, cool, I want to get involved with this. And your body's going to start doing something else. If you're a man, it does one thing. If you're a woman, it does another thing. And so your body starts reacting, and then your brain and body, the neural synapses, that like you're just going to start firing between each other. It's going to go bap, 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 and then it's going to get accelerated. But the challenge was, for me, I didn't understand that. And so I would do all this mindset work, I would do all this brain work, I would do all this psychological learning. And I was like, I'm still having the same reactions. Why is my body wanting to do this? From a Christian perspective, why is my flesh wanting this, but my brain is saying no? And so I learned about all this nervous system work, and that's when I really realized I need to do both. It can't be one or the other. It's kind of like when people go to the gym and they train really hard and they're like, oh, you know, I'm just going to train really hard, but then they don't have the diet and sleep to help them move forwards. It's the same when you're trying to level yourself up as an entrepreneur. You'll get to a point where you're going to need to do both the identity work, the brain stuff, as well as the body stuff. And so the way that I learn about it best, although I can keep just diving into more and more work and more research, I've done over 150, now nearly 180 market research calls up to this point. So we literally just hop on a 15-minute call we've had entrepreneurs earning 10K a month. We've had entrepreneurs earning 5 million a year on those calls. And really we're able to just understand, hey, what are the patterns going on? What are the frameworks? And then at the end of the call, I can say, hey, here's your pattern. So it's cool because I get to get some market research, use it in my social media, all of that stuff. But I also get to give somebody a little bit of their own sort of custom diagnosis. So it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that I've been learning a lot about in the last few years, and it's great that it's being talked about more. There's more research, there's more books. The Body Keeps Score, The Mountain Is You. Like, there's just so many, books and research now about how trauma gets stored in the body, and that's really fascinating. So then your approach to coaching these entrepreneurs is psychological, somatic, nervous system work. It's all those different things then.
A blend of that, and then we have something called performance accountability, where we effectively track a few things. The universal thing that we track with every single entrepreneur is all about your self-trust. Because if you believe that you can do something, you're basically unstoppable. Because everything is going to be created from, I can do this. But so many of the entrepreneurs we work with, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, where you say you have so many things happen in your plate. It feels like an entire year happened in the last week. You're like, wait, that was only just last week? Okay. But all these things happen, and unfortunately, things slip through the gaps. We make these micro promises, micro things. Oh yeah, I need to make sure to reach out to that person tomorrow. I need to make sure to follow up on that email. All these things that slip through the cracks, which usually, even an executive assistant would help. But even the world's best executive assistants, there's going to be these micro promises that you don't even say out loud that you're going to do. And so what we do is we sit down every week, and when we map out that 90-day plan that I talked about earlier, we then just look at what are the things that you're going to do this week that are really going to move the needle. We map that out, and then we track out of those tasks, how many did you get done? So if you put 10 down, you only got 7 done, that's 70% task completion rate. And the goal is over time is for us to level up your self-trust so that you can make bigger and bolder decisions, because oftentimes in entrepreneurship, most of the things that are going to grow you, you're either afraid of doing or I believe you're afraid of doing, or you're afraid of letting someone else do it, and so that stops you from doing something else. The excessive control we talked about earlier. And so we hold you to the standard of making sure things get done. It's the most direct reflection that we've seen. People have astronomical results. We have this one person who's been with us. Effectively, she was a lawyer for 21 years, and then she started her own agency to effectively be the middleman so that people don't get slapped with a massive law fee at the end. She just charges a monthly rate. And the first week we worked together, she was at 40K a month, 16% task completion rate. So imagine you said you were going to do 100 tasks this week and you only did 16. How do you feel your self-confidence would be? How do you feel like your self-doubt would be? Where else in your life is this leaking out to? And of course, her problems were team would sort of do things, then she would take them back because the systems weren't built, because she wasn't delegating properly, and so she was constantly in and out of the business. The classic on the business versus in the business, just constantly back and forth, draining her energy, overwhelmed, burned out, the whole thing. And so we started tracking task completion rate. 4 weeks later, she was at 84%. So what's that? Effectively like a 5x increase, 500% improvement in self-trust and self-belief, and she was at 83K a month, which is your seven figures a year turnover mark. And so there's a direct correlation with the work with the tracking task completion rate. Another thing we've just started doing is building custom dashboards with AI, so we're having a lot of fun with that, and so just tracking a few more little integrative measurements, but that's very unique to the person. Some people might just want to track weight or track steps or track amount of DMs or the amount of conversations or the amount of sales. And some people might want to track every little minute of the day. So that's really custom to what does the client really want and what do they need, and we'll assess that when we start.
Well, that's amazing. Then do you go in with the recommendation of like you should work out, you should eat healthy, you should get a good night's sleep, you should meditate? Like what are your recommendations?
I'm like old school coach where I'll come in with a plan, but I also believe entrepreneurs know exactly what they need to do. They're just not doing it. So usually I'm just really great at asking questions and finding out what that is. So for example, today we had a student and she, bless her heart, had just had a really heavy life event go on and she's had a bit of a dip this week. I just asked her, well, hey, really appreciate you showing up to this call, having the courage to share what's on your heart and where you're at. What do you feel like you need to do to actually move forward? And I just sit there and I'll sit there in 5 minutes of silence until they figure out the answer. She's like, you know what? I just need to get over this and just get myself moving and just like not being in the doom and gloom. There we go. And then what do I need? What do you need from me to hold you accountable to making sure that that happens this week? Make sure I do this, make sure I do this, make sure I do this. Cool, done. But people don't realize that the simplicity of accountability,
Yeah.
it's it's astronomical in the amount of shifts that you can have. The American Society of Training and Development did a study around around success rate around goals. If you just set a goal, you're around 10% more likely to achieve it. If you have a plan, around 40%. If you have consistent check-ins with somebody from a coaching perspective, you're 95% more likely to achieve success. And who here doesn't want to be 95% more likely to be successful?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's where we hold the level of accountability to make sure that people follow through. And then over the last few years, I've been in a few different business engagements, a few seven-figure business partnerships. And so we'll interject information here and there when people need it. But yeah, relatively, we're just holding people accountable, teaching them about how their brain works, teaching about their body, teaching them about the different time management, energy management systems. Yeah, that's how we rock and roll.
So interesting because I talk to high performers, entrepreneurs every single day, whether it's for my AI business or for the podcast, and you do see the same trends, addictive personalities, trading one addiction for business or whatever it is. And, you know, some people say entrepreneurship is a trauma response, and I grew up in a home where my dad wasn't the easiest to be around either. And those messages, you're completely right about the inner self-talk and being able to coach yourself and have that reassurance, not from external sources. Because like, yes, that's great too, whether it's from a romantic partner, friends, people to encourage you. And we all appreciate and need that to an extent. But at the end of the day, like you have to be able to drive yourself in the right direction, correct yourself or pick yourself up, right? Like we can't always just rely on these external sources or people or coping mechanisms, or we're never going to really get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was saying to the student today, and I think it's really important for you guys to remember, if you look at the best athletes in the world, all of them have a variety of coaches. They have a strength coach, they have a head coach. If they're playing some sort of football, they might have an offensive coach. You have a running back coach, you have a kick return coach if this is American football, right? And so there's all these different variety of coaches, and it's like, why do you think they have that? Do you think they're not talented or skilled enough or don't work hard enough? No, they have all those things. But it's like, how can you get somebody external to just look outside the jar? Imagine you guys are all inside a marmalade jar. That's the reference we're going in, some sweet marmalade. And you're inside the jar right now. So you can't read the label. You can't read what's going on. And that label's being updated every single day. And so that's the value of when you get somebody external to have a look at where are the most intricate parts of this. And this is one of my favorite things. One of our newest students came on board the other day, and her goal is to hit 100K a month in the next 90 days, which we've done several times. And it was pretty cool because when at the end of our call, she's a great student. She was like, "Oh, is there anything else that I've missed that you think I've missed?" And I was like, "Do you want to know something cool about coaching so many people and having all these documents?" She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I've got all the documentation from all of our other students that have done 100K a month. So we can take all the strategies from all these guys and say, hey, we did this, 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 this. Is there anything that you feel would align with your business?" It's not a, hey, Mel, I think you should do this. Is there anything that you feel would help you from this stuff? And then she'll let me know what's aligned and what won't work and what will work. And then we just keep adjusting each week. It's a lot of fun. If I could coach for free and we didn't live in the world that we live in, I would just coach for free because it's just so fun.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like, from everything you've told me, to really make leaps and bounds, people need to be vulnerable with you, right? They need to be honest with themselves. They need to be open enough with you about what they're struggling with. And it's fascinating because, we hear a lot now about like the male loneliness epidemic or the high suicide rate, especially for men, because I think it's not necessarily societally encouraged for guys to talk about their feelings, right? Just be a man, suck it up, stop crying. And people tend to bottle it in. So it's nice to see that people can have a safe space with you, talk to another guy. Sometimes it could be intimidating to talk to a woman about things maybe, but I'm sure you've seen just a lot of people just opening up to you, right?
Yeah, it's really it's really a blessing to be able to evolve your energy patterns as time, because I think we took a look a lot about like the masculine and feminine energy. And so to be able to have come through my growth path enough to have healed the issues in my past with my mum and my dad so that I can step into a place where I'm safe for other people to then express what's on their heart or what's on their mind. We oftentimes have some really intimate stuff that we talk with people, and so it's really important to be able to hold that space, because otherwise, like you said, with the body keeping score, otherwise you can have tensions, emotions, all of these things stored into your body that can create some pretty significant challenges. We had another student that, bless her heart, I'm not going to get into the details of who she is, but there was some abuse that happened when she was a child. And because of this abuse, not only had she stepped into a place where everything that she did, her entire self-worth was based on her achievements and based on her performance. And so within that, it meant that, sure, her business was doing great, the money, the numbers were good, but the moment that the numbers dipped, or the moment that anything that went wrong with the team, she would get triggered from this childhood wound that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get punished. Oh my gosh, that punishment's going to be extreme. And then because she couldn't express it, that anger would then go down to her hips and her legs, and she was struggling to walk.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the wild thing, is as you grow up, I don't think a lot of people know about this, many people do, but basically if your legs and hips get to a point where you need to have hip surgery, it's really like it's a really bad pinhole. There's a lot of direct research that says like when people have hip surgery, the amount of time between when they're going to die effectively, when they're going to go to the next life, is shortened so much because the hip surgery and then needing the physio and all of the stuff. At the age that happens, it's usually not repairable. But this is what I want you guys to tune into. This stuff starts now. These are emotions that are storing right here, right now. These little frustrations, these little things that you can't talk to anybody else about because nobody else understands. These need to be handled, and you need to have protocols, not just on from a one-to-one session, but you need to have regular protocols where you're able to move through these things. And so many entrepreneurs are somewhere on the spectrum. And so I'm not saying that you guys necessarily have ADHD or autism, but you might have certain tendencies or thought at certain times that you have these things. And what that means is within your brain and within your body, you're already operating differently because you're an entrepreneur. You're already operating differently. You're already handling a lot more stress and a lot more back and forth than the regular person would do. And so if you're not doing something regularly to process these emotions, to process the limitations in your mind, which are also connected to the emotions, these things are opening you up for a life where we're increasing risk of cardiovascular disease, we're increasing risk of different cancers, we're increasing risks of immobility as you grow up. And for people who want to have a massive vision and want to help a lot of people, or want to have just a completely different experience than they did as they were a child, that stuff's limited if we don't fix it. And so it's like when we talk to people, there's this real space of helping them grasp, like, this is a really important thing for you to solve. It's very important to get this stuff in place.
Definitely. No, you're completely right. And I think it's amazing that, like, at least in Medellin, for instance, they have men's groups. They have like free men's groups where people can just come and be vulnerable and support each other. And I think that's amazing. And I know women, especially, develop autoimmune disorders at a really high rate. Because sometimes they'll just keep things in, because a lot of times they're carrying the weight of being the project manager of the whole family, doing the kid keeping, the domestic and nurturing side. And in a lot of households, they don't get that much support. They're just kind of doing everything. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've been researching more, I've heard more about, and I've seen videos of people, just getting deep hip stretches and then they just start crying because it's just like unleashing just years of like pent up energy and emotion. It's just so crazy to see. But I guess, what is your opinion on things like ayahuasca ceremonies and plant medicine ceremonies that are so common where you are in Medellin?
Yeah, my perspective on ayahuasca and different plant ceremonies is they have a place, but I think it still borders into the level of external things. And I think people can get really carried away with overusing them. So we had a student a while back that had done something like 36 or 37 ayahuasca ceremonies. And at that point, it's like, at what point are you actually finding things? And at what point are you maybe bringing in other entities that are giving you a lack of clarity in your mind? And his whole issue was self-trust and self-belief and following through with the things that he wanted to do. So he was consistently externalizing it to different sources. And so the biggest thing that he needed was a coach to kick him in the butt and say, like, hey, dude, like, this is your goal. It's like, stop doing ayahuasca ceremonies every 2 weeks
Yeah.
and go and execute on the stuff and then be in this integration phase. You don't need an integration phase if you're not fucking integrating. If you're not integrating your own goals, like, what are you doing? At the same time, it's not to say that these things don't change your life. I had a plant ceremony, a mushroom ceremony in Canada about 2, 3 years ago. And this was before I got into all the neo-emotional release stuff. I was very much a very people-pleasing man. If somebody wanted some way or somebody wanted to do something their way, I would just push it off. From a sales perspective, if somebody was like, oh, I need to think about it, I was like, okay, that's fine, you can go think about it. Rather than dive in, I didn't want to cause any sort of argument, any sort of conflict, because I had that trauma from me as a child, whereas any sort of conflict was met with extreme aggression or whatever that was. And so I was terrified of being a man, because my ideal of a man, the only vision of a man that I'd had was my father. Bless his heart, like, he did what he could, but he had his own issues. His dad was in the military, he wasn't really present, so he didn't have that leadership either. And so within the plant ceremony, we get to this beautiful space. Shaman lady, she sits us down. She was like, okay, we're gonna do like 3.5 grams, and then you're gonna be blindfolded. And I thought, we're going to do mushrooms and just watch TV. I thought that was going to be the plan. But no, it was like, no, you're going to be blindfolded. You're going to go through some things. And I was like, gets us dancing. And she puts on Phil Collins in the air tonight as we're dancing. And I was like, what is going on here? And anyhow, we do the drink, and like 30 minutes later, that we start feeling the effects. we go and sit down, and she says, hey, during this time there's going to be this moment where you've got to let go of your ego, you've got to let go of the control, and you've got to just go with it. And during this plant ceremony, I'm in what I feel is purgatory. And so the sun is this burning skull, and there's all these like dead trees everywhere, all this sort of cryptic stuff. And there's this river going down this way, and it's like, go down the river. I'm like, no, I don't want to go down the river. I don't want to go down the river. And I'm very ambitious. So like, I want to do some really, really big things. Like I look to your Elon Musks and people doing some really big things in the world. And I look at it as like, wow, imagine being able to have that sort of mission and be able to take people to a different entire world. Or imagine being able to, create an entire AI system that, is effectively up there with the competitors of Claude, ChatGPT, etc. So I'm going down this flowy river, and I'm like, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And I'm like, okay, just trust yourself, just trust yourself. And I go down this river. I end up in this cavern, and there's all these people, and I've perceived it as all these people in the world moving towards these light, and I see it as all the entrepreneurs are just moving towards this light, moving towards this big vision. I see Elon Musk there, and I was like, okay, cool. I am in a similar paradigm as him. We're still moving to the light. But what was interesting really about this plant medicine ceremony, coming back to the man thing, I was coming out of the transition, and I needed to go to the toilet. I went to the toilet, and she was like, oh, while you're in the toilet, I've got this like little jar with little pieces of paper. Just go and pick up the piece of paper. So I get to the toilet, everything's spinning, everything's got beautiful patterns going on, I'm tripping still. And I pick up a piece of paper, and this paper was like, lead yourself. I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. Because at the time I was in this like open relationship, and she was like, I want to be in an open relationship. I don't want to be in a committed relationship. Probably I'm actually really good friends with this person now. That was due to some trust of men being super passive in her past. I could have I'd had a credit card bill for like a year and a half, and I could have cleared it, and I had the money to clear it, but I wasn't clearing it because I was holding on to this weird sort of control and fear of losing the money, which wasn't true.
Hmm.
And then this was round about the time that I actually paused my podcast, which I was talking to you about earlier. I think this was the exact same time. Right, I need to make all these decisions. And I was just like, bang, 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 all these transitions. But it's interesting, going back to what we were saying with the plant ceremony. I have a similar framework that can take people through all these little micro frustrations, micro angers, all of these things. And we can do that in a half-hour call or a half-hour little piece that you do yourself. Set boundaries, set decisions, set commitments. And so, do I feel like I could have needed that plant ceremony to have gone through those decisions? No. Could I have gone through my own thing? Yes. But at the same time, had to go through that plant ceremony thing at the time to get to where I am now. And so, do they have a place? Yes. But do you need to consistently put external things from the world into you? No. And so, I think being able to find yourself a repeatable, sustainable thing, not doing ayahuasca 37 times, that holds you accountable to stepping into your new self and your goals is maybe like the next tier up from that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I had been thinking about doing an ayahuasca ceremony for the last few years, but I didn't want to treat it like a quick fix. I wanted to make sure I had the right like integration, and it just hasn't really worked out with timing. But it's something that I've considered, just because, like like you were saying, I've done so much talk therapy. I've done breath work, meditation, but I still have these dreams that won't go away about a very traumatic experience that happened when I was a young adult. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out something. Suggested EMDR, so that's something that I want to look into. Other people have said like ketamine therapy. So I'm just in an exploration period, but I know different things work for different people too.
Yeah, I'm giggling at the ketamine, not because of you. I also had a ketamine problem at one time, and so yeah, in the multitude of drug issues that I've had, that was in the concoction. So yeah, I haven't done specific ketamine therapy. I've just done ketamine party avoidance, you could call it, back in the day. Yeah, I mean, I think all of the methods have merit to it. But yeah, I'll send you well, if anybody's listening and wants that training and framework, I'll pull together a past call that I've done and the frameworks and what from it. Just, I don't know what keyword we'll drop, but we'll get them whatever they need. So you guys can use that tool, and I'll send it to you as well.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm curious. I know how you mentioned, like, when you're a kid, a lot of boys are over or misdiagnosed with ADHD because boys learn differently than girls. They behave differently. They don't, it's harder for them to like sit still or sit in place. And I have this theory, like, because did you watch that documentary about the manosphere on Netflix?
No, I haven't watched it. I've only heard good things. I've only heard good and bad things.
It was really fascinating and insightful because you hear a lot more about those influencers these days. These manosphere, and in Medellin, there's a lot of passport bros. There are a lot of guys who kind of believe these things and go to Colombia because they just sort of want a woman who will just listen to them, right? Who maybe won't have her own thoughts or speak out against them and will be really hot and doesn't even have to speak English. But I've seen it countless times, and it just seems like the pipeline from being misdiagnosed or told to sit still or punished for just being yourself as a boy, and then it's getting harder to find opportunities and jobs for men, at least in the US. Women are surpassing them in many metrics, whether it's attending college, getting high paying jobs, leaving their parents' house. And it's not to shame men at all. Like, obviously, we need to find solutions for this, or people are going to stop having children and procreating, or there's just going to be more hatred and mass shootings or violence against women. What is your sort of opinion on this, like, I guess, movement?
I understand it because that's what I grew up with. The culture that I grew up with was sleep with as many people as you can, and that's what makes you the man. I remember being on a bus in my American football. So I played American football in the UK. Yes, that's a thing for you guys who don't know. Yes, some people actually go to the NFL, so like there is a level that you play. But I remember being at the back of the bus with the cool guys, and it was like, hey, everybody drink who slept with 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 40, 50. And then the people who slept with like 50 plus, it's like, yeah, like celebrating. But it's so sad. It's like, imagine like that's what you have to do, coming back to the performance thing, to be worshipped, to feel validated, to be whatever that is. And there is a certain, I believe there is a certain genetic part to it with men being able to procreate and not needing sort of 9 months of pregnancy and whatnot. But at the same time, I know when I came to, I think it comes to the underlying beliefs below that and what you really value. I think for me, since becoming a Christian, and I'm not saying everybody needs to become a Christian and go to church, like if you want to go and worship helicopters, then cool, you go and do that. I'm not stopping you. Whatever makes you a better person. But I think that's the best thing is like what defines you as a human being? What does a good person look like to you? What does respecting somebody look like? What does going down this road as you get older, who do you want to be known as? Do you want to be sort of known as a sort of Hugh Hefner type person? Or do you want to be somebody that builds a family, builds a legacy, can pass things on to their children, they carry that on their vision? And so I'm not casting judgment to either because I've been in that space where sleeping with multiple people and I get the appeal being in Colombia. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many beautiful people and there's all this stuff. Maybe this is appealing. At the same time, I'm like, especially even if I looked at it from what I described as earlier with being an entrepreneur and having so many different things on your plate, does it really serve you having 5 different women or 4 different women or whatever that is to provide and to protect for fully and to fully give them yourself? I don't know, maybe you're only giving part of yourself. And maybe you're only giving part of yourself because you're scared of fully committing because you got hurt in the past or because of your conditioning or because of you fearing judgment. And so that would be speaking to the men. And then on the flip side, I feel like there is an epidemic of traditional values lost within women. And I'm not saying that I don't want my daughter to be an entrepreneur and be able to go and help the world and go and do what she wants to do. But at the same time, there needs to be an element, I think, maybe I'm going off topic here, of being able to surrender to where she can trust a man. But then there's an epidemic of men that can't be trusted because of the passport bros. So I totally get it. I totally understand why the situation would prevail. But it takes the courage of a man and it takes the courage of a woman to say, hey, I'm going to do things differently. For me, that was asking, in the past, I did the classic. I wrote down on a list, hey, who is the perfect person that I want? And I would write down everything. Yeah, ambitious, supports my goals, is inspiring, likes great sex. All that stuff would go in. I would attract that partner. Doesn't mean that partner was good for me though, because I did it for me. And so this is why I think it's important for you to have some kind of spiritual connection, God, universe, whatever that is, because I asked God, I finally surrendered. I was like, God, clearly this is not working after being in the 10th toxic relationship in which I am the common denominator. Who do I genuinely need, who do I need to be? What do I need to change? And I first asked him, who is the type of woman that is best for me? And he listed out a few things, and I was like, well, this isn't as big as my list, but okay, it's God. Who am I to question God? And then I said, well, who do I need to be? And he listed, hey, get your money right, go to Muay Thai, go and exercise, go and respect yourself more, go to church more, go and be in alignment with your word and your integrity, stop externally validating yourself. I started doing all of that, and then I just attracted the partner. And at the time I made a decision, I was like, I'm going to go on a date a week. And I would go on a date a week, I would still get the uncomfortable feelings when I didn't resonate with somebody, except I didn't string that relationship on because I wanted sex, or I thought that might be something that I wanted. I was just able to make a more clear-cut decision. So I think really the difference between what's going on, I can totally understand it, but it might mean it's right for one person. It doesn't mean that it's right for another. And so I think it's really important for you guys to know, who are you underneath, and who is your best version of yourself 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, maybe 50 or 60 if you're in your 20s. Who is that best version of yourself? What does their life look like? And why would you not act on that now? Why would you even wait for that? We're all going to die one day. And so why would you not wait on becoming that person and then creating your world from there?
Totally. That's amazing. Hearing about your transformation and that you are and can be a role model to so many other men who are struggling, because I truly believe, so like I went to a private all girls high school, and then I went to the Naval Academy, so I was in the military, and went from 100% women to like 20% women maybe. So all of a sudden I learned what men were like, young adults from the ages of 18 to 22. I was like, holy shit, like this is how they behave. And the thing is, what I realized was a lot of it was sort of this homoerotic behavior for each other, like, oh hey bro, like I got this girl drunk, and we hooked up, and they were just showing off for each other and trying to get the approval for each other. It wasn't even about impressing other women necessarily at the end of the day. And so it was really like just puzzling and strange to me. But from that documentary, what they show, and I was surprised the documentary like filmmaker was able to get this level of access and see that these guys, the pattern and trend that they had was that they didn't have father figures, or their fathers were abusive, or they just weren't around. And so they had these wounds, they had these masculine like father wounds that they, I think, messed their feelings and hid them by, making a lot of money off of building these brands and preying on impressionable younger men and teaching them these things, indoctrinating them in this like, well, fuck women, just use them, sleep with as many women as you want. If you're in a relationship, they have to be exclusive to you, but you don't have to be exclusive to them. And it's sad how they're making millions of dollars off of these things, but the documentary just really shows like how it's not serving people. And just based on the data, when women are single, they tend to pour into themselves and build community with each other. But when men are single, they tend to be radicalized and sometimes commit violence against women. So yeah, it's just interesting to see, and I hope, and it's amazing to see role models like you who are speaking out about these things, who are being vulnerable, who can level with these guys because you have been them, or you understand what it's like to be in their shoes in the past. And so I think, my friend Mark is also a coach doing the same thing. He's in Medellin. I'll actually connect you guys because I think you get along well. But it's men like you who can speak to other men and actually change their minds or convince them. It's not me who's going to be able to do it.
And it's like, it's a constant validation loop. Like, trust me when I say this, guys, like being a former sex addict, I've probably slept with more people than you have. Like at one point, sometimes it was like 3-4 people a night. And so like, it's been bad. It's been really bad. And I can tell you from the bottom of my soul, none of it made me feel good. My soul just felt empty. I would do it, feel good. And especially like when I'm by myself, it would feel even worse. Because if I'm with the bros, yeah, dude, like I just fucked this chick. Look at this picture of how hot she is. Look what, like, we did this position. Oh my God, bro. Yeah, I come here. Like, okay, cool. But then like you're talking about with the manosphere, like people creating these communities, it's like you're creating a community of people validating you, that your thing is right, so that you can have some internal justification that what you're doing isn't bad, even though there is an underlying level of shame and guilt. Whether how deeply buried that is, it's there and it's uncomfortable and it's triggering, and you're going to attack other people who would talk about, no, what you're doing is wrong. I've had the same regime. I said, like, oh yeah, like right now I'm celibate until marriage. That was a massive decision for me to make a few weeks back. But the amount of people that I talk to who are like, oh no, I could never do that, bro. Why? Why can't you do that? Why are you so weak that you can't stop yourself from doing that? What are you trying to get? What do you supposedly need? Because you don't need sex. It's not a human need. Your human needs are water, like food. You don't even technically need a roof over your head. I've been sleeping in my car, so it's so those are your needs. And so if you feel like you need anything beyond that, dive into that. See where that's coming from. That might be something that might be worth exploring. And you never know who you'll become on the other side of that and what you'll be able to change.
Amazing. Wow. And I know you mentioned becoming a Christian. Can you talk about like how that happened or what made you make that commitment?
Yeah. So I started believing in the universe and whatnot,
Hmm.
where I was in my first year in business and I read this book called You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. I read it like 5 times. Great book. It's good reading a good personal development book by somebody that's actually a writer because it's actually easy to read. But anyhow, she started talking about universe. So I started talking to the universe, but I never really got this back and forth talk. It was just like, universe, please give me abundance, please give me more money, please scale my business. And things would happen. Like I had some breakthroughs with it. But I joined this faith-based business program about 2.5 years ago. And in this faith-based business program, I was still playing around with my niche. I was like, do I help with consistency? Do I help with discipline? Do I help with confidence and mindset? And then the head coach just says, well, why don't you talk to God? In my head, and I'm like, I don't know how to talk to God. I'm not like everybody else here. I don't go to church. I don't read the Bible. I don't even pray. And then I had some random person on Instagram send me this massive long prayer, praying for me and praying for me to get close to the God. And I'm like, hey, well, that's 2 signs. That's weird. And then somebody else in the program I was talking to about niche and email marketing. She was like, why don't you talk to God about it? At this point, I'm getting pissed. Like, I don't know. Oh God. I remember I remember going to the gym and I was coming back to the gym, and after the gym I always used to just chill and watch UFC. I went to go and watch UFC. I open my phone, I hear this big loud voice being like, don't do that. Okay. I hear this voice and it says, open your phone and open notes up on your phone. I'm like, okay, open up notes on my phone. And the voice just says, what do you want? And I just said like, I want to help my mum. And it's like, why can't you? I was like, because I keep trying to search for answers everywhere else rather than searching for my answers within, and I can't trust myself. The voice was like, well, what do you need to do? I was like, well, I need to trust you, I guess, if you're God. I was like, what do you think? Trust you. I was like, okay. And then I just started having this back and forth conversation. Now I've got paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of me talking back and forth with God there. But that's how I first found God. And then I would really say that over the last year and a bit, year and a half, I would say my faith has grown stronger where I regularly go to church, I regularly read the Bible. I talk to God probably like 2, 3 times a day, if not more, for like dedicated time. That's where I get the most clarity, it's where I've had the most self-trust. It took me four, it took me 6 years of knowing that I had addiction, to actually get sober. And that came from God. Like, yeah, I did the nervous system and I did the identity work and I got regulated enough to give myself 20-day stints or 30-day stints, but I would still keep relapsing. But it was God who told me to go celibate. And it was when I went celibate where everything finally came to fruition. So, yeah.
And I know you're in a relationship now and you attracted this person. Like, do you think you'll get married? Like, how do you know she's the person for you?
Oh, we're getting married. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be in a relationship if I wasn't going to get married. Why would I be in a relationship to just waste my time and teeter-tot? On the first date, she was like, what are you looking for? And I was like, I'm looking for a wife, just straight up. I'm like, why would I be uncommitted? It's like somebody asking you, like, why are you in business? I don't know. Like, I want to do, like, people know why they want to be in business. They either want to make a shit ton of money and go and live a freedom-based lifestyle, travel around the world, or they want to maybe hit some grand vision, or maybe they're just pissed off from their past. They're like, I want to prove to my parents that I can do it. Cool, like that's fine, but you need to be honest about what your reasons are. and honest with the other people on the other side. And so with the relationship that I'm in, I was just straight like, yeah, this is what I want. Um, and yeah, there's definitely been some like little challenges here and there, but nothing on the realm of my toxic past relationships. And I did want a wife before. Like I would only get into a relationship if I genuinely wanted something long term. But I was always doing it from my flesh. I was always doing it from my desires rather than what does God want for me? Who am I meant to be? All of that type of stuff. Side note, by the way, I don't know if you've got to go, but I do have to go in like 2 minutes. But all good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time so much. This was such an amazing conversation. I learned a lot, and we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to catch up. I know we're in some similar circles, but when you're here and you're not in prep for ayahuasca, if you are still doing that, I don't know what the plan is. I'll have to catch up and I'll get the resources together for you. We can also throw out for everybody listening, if you don't want to do a whole 1 hour exercise and you want to just get into like the foundations of understanding what might I do in the moment to reset? We've got a 5 minute entrepreneurs reset protocol. So yeah, you can learn a little bit about how your brain and body works from a little bit more technical language, but there's a quick little 5 minute reset we'll give you guys as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And for everyone else, please tune into the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.